You get into the Army National Guard
Hmm.
finally.
Hmm.
So, how old are you? How many kids do you have at this point? Like, and how is it making that jump or that leap into the basic training environment?
Yeah, so basic, I was 35 years old. I
Oh
wasn't even
my!
the oldest person in my platoon,
There,
let alone the company.
there were a lot of old dudes
Yeah.
there, man. Like I was sitting there, like I'm gonna be the Bay Dad when I get there, and there was like some guys in there pushing 40s and
Hmm.
stuff. There, I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, the oldest guy in my platoon was 37, so he was 2 years older than me. But yeah, I was 35. Marie and I had been married for 7 years at that point, and we had four children. We have five now. We had four children, and yeah, the transition was interesting. I mean, basic was not difficult, uh, technically, like the stuff that was going on, right? Like I'd say 97% of the difficulty was being away from Marie and the boys,
Mhm.
like without a doubt. Um, but you get past, just like everybody says, you get past those 2 or 3 weeks, right? And things start to smooth out a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, it was good though. It was good. I mean, a lot of the kids in the I don't even like to use the word kids. They're men. They're young men,
Yeah.
right? But a lot of the young men in the platoon were could have literally been my children. Like
Hmm.
if I had had a child at 18, they would have been 17 today, and there were 17-year-olds in my platoon. So they
Hmm.
literally could have been my children, um, which was never a disadvantage. No one ever said a darn thing about my age ever. Not the drill sergeants, not the
Hmm.
trainees. It never was a factor, and they would come to me and talk about things that were important to them. It happened quick too, even in reception, which everybody, of course, everyone knows it sucks. Like it definitely sucks. But like, even in reception, I had this kid come up to me and he was like, "Hey, you're married, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "What is love?" And at first, I thought he was like messing with me,
Hmm.
right? I was like, "I don't even know who you are. Um, what are you talking about?" And I saw on his face that he was sincere, and I was like, "Oh, that's really strange." Um, but I collected myself and I we talked about what love was, from a Catholic perspective, although I didn't say that. And it was and that happened multiple times throughout all of basic training. I would even get the drill sergeants. They would call me in and ask me questions about things, like because I was older than the drill sergeants. You know, I'm
Drill sergeant trainee. What is love?
well, probably the funniest was there's a couple times were really funny. One of the drill sergeants would call me over, and they'd be like, "Hey, I'd come over, he'd be like, I want you to talk to these young people about kids and about homeschooling and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, drill sergeant, like, sure. Because he kind of was of the same mindset as I was, but, he just wanted me to say it, I guess. I don't know. Maybe oh, no, he was leaving. So he
Hmm.
wanted me to like entertain everybody while he was leaving. And then another one was my senior drill sergeant called me in and he was like, Edgar, I'm really disappointed in you. Yeah, I thought you were different. And I was like, what's going on here? This is really weird. And he's like, I can't believe you homeschool your children. And like, I almost started laughing. Like, and I was like, yes, Drill Sergeant. And he's like, why do you do that? And we talked about values alignment and being able to actually raise your kids and not have other people raise your kids. And I said, for a lot of people, public school is the right course of action because you share the values with the public school and the people in the public school are like your kids and they're like you, and that might be perfectly acceptable. Maybe you want to send your kid to a private Jewish school because that's going to be the best course of action for you. For me, the best course of action for my wife and I is to homeschool the children. And if you keep your eye on the goal and you take actions based on that goal, then you are going to be more successful than if you didn't have a goal in the first place and you were taking actions willy nilly. And he was like, that makes a whole lot of sense. Dismissed.
Uh,
Such a
the
strange.
kind of power you can't buy. You can come in there and scold somebody for homeschooling your kids and be
I
like, all
know.
right, thank you for that word. You're
I
dismissed. Go
know.
away
And
now.
like and these are not young guys. I mean, like this guy was probably like 30 or
Yeah.
32.
Yeah.
He was married, had kids, but like he was still younger than me. So,
That was about the average age of all the drill sergeants there. And then there was the senior drill sergeant, or like the senior drill sergeant who was leaving, so it was a way, it would Drill Sergeant Montez. He is he's a good dude, but he's like not all there. And then there was one day I was sitting there and like I'm sitting listening to him talk, and then he looks at me because somehow Chad and I wound up at the exact same basic training company at different times. So Chad went, and then I went. Literally, he came back right before Christmas, and then I left right after New Year's, and I go to the exact same company he did. And drill sergeant. So obviously, all the drill sergeants there, and all of them were basically the same ones. So, but Montez, who was the senior there at the time, was like, "Isn't that right, old man?" And I just like looked at him because he does not. I do not look older than he does. Okay, like I looked at him and I was like, "What was that? Was that drill sergeant?" He's like, "Yeah, isn't that right, old man?" And he goes, "I'm 31." And I was just like, and I mean, I had to bite my tongue because I was like, "Get the fudge out of here, dude! You do not." There's no way I'm younger than you, or there's no way I'm older than you, bro.
Yeah.
But it was just wild when, like, because I'm sitting there, and I was older than I think all the drill sergeants there too.
Aside probably.
Musgrove.
Musgrove,
Yeah, Musgrove was older than me.
Our outgoing senior drill sergeant, so he didn't really take part in any of the actual administration anymore. He was kind of like senior drill sergeant emeritus. He was 42, and he had just made sergeant first class, and we congratulated him. I was, "Oh, congratulations, sergeant." He's like, "This ain't my first time at E7." Okay.
I get what you're putting down, Sergeant.
I got you, Sergeant. Yeah. You got in trouble at some point, didn't
Yes,
you?
Yes, indeed.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. But yeah, it is weird being like the older guy there because, like I said, when he called me old man, I just wanted to look at him. I borderline wanted to smack him and be like, look in the mirror. I wanted to be like, look in the mirror. And then he said how old he was, and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And most of us did really, really well. I mean, the fastest runner in the company by far was 37. He was doing the what's the distance? 2 miles?
Yeah. 2 miles.
He was doing the 2 miles in like 11 and a half minutes.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, the dude was flying.
Yeah, the guy who run the Ironman in mine was 33. He was my age, and it was Dwayne, the pilot. The guy works for American, and he just crushed it. Like I just remember watching him, I was like, man. I mean, I got better every time I ran. I was like down like almost a 14-minute mile, and I remember watching him run. I was like, man. Like, and then they gave him the Ironman thing, and like he was carrying around the flag, and all just like, way to go, old man. And I'm just like, dude, like putting all these little kids to shame.
Hopefully 14-minute 2 mile.
Yeah, no, it was like probably a 13-minute.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, mine was. I was trying to get a
14-minute
14-minute 2 mile. Yeah, not a mile. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just interesting having that perspective, being the older guy in the unit, because you're surrounded by and stupid stuff sets kids off. You know, you're just like, it's like this is what's going to go, because I don't think a lot of the kids in my platoon liked me a whole lot, or like, you know, I think they thought because I was just the joke, but I was the jokester. You know, like I laughed, I liked to have a good time, but that's what I did to keep their morale up. And one time, morale got so low because we had getting smoked outside all night, you know, just getting yelled at for no reason. And they were just looking for excuses to bust us, you know. And when we're there, we get back into the bay, you know, where our barracks are. And as we walk in there, it's trash, you know, like and it wasn't even trash bad. Only a couple of beds were tossed. Somebody left their locker unsecured, so there was stuff spread out. And there was a couple of sandbags and they put wet sand in a mop there. And so that was rough. And I just remember looking at these kids, and they were just like, "Why? How could they do this to us? We're so tired. I just want to go to bed." And I just like, guys, you know, I was in a fraternity and I had to clean it. I embellished quite a bit, but you know, I was like, I was in a fraternity. I had a pledge class of like 5 guys, and we had to clean a 3-story mansion. And at least the drill sergeants here, like a lot of them are combat vets, and you know, like they're doing this because it has a purpose. They're trying to like, bad stuff's gonna happen. You have to come in and deal it and fix it. And I go, I had to clean up a 3-story mansion because a bunch of drunk dudes thought they were better than I was. You know, it's like, which is worse? And we have there's 40 of us here to clean this mess up, and we can all help each other. And I had 6 dudes to clean a 3-story house. Do you really think we have it that bad here? And then they were like, no, man, you gotta put that perspective. I was like, exactly. This is not that big of a deal. We'll clean it up. We'll go to bed, and then fire guard will polish up this turd that we clean. You know, so it's gonna be fine. You know, it's like but as the older guy, you just gotta have that perspective. You know, it's like you've lived life, you've had you've had lots of heartbreaks and lots of trials and tribulations that they just like, this is the worst thing that's happened to them. So it's just like, oh, I go to sleep at midnight and I wake up at 2, it's like that's their lives up until that point,
Yep.
So, but yeah, so what is probably one of the best, other than the ones you already told us, what's probably the best story you've had from basic training? Best, funniest, most memorable, or worst experience you had there?
Well, I think most of my favorite experiences involved sharing and I don't know, the term mentoring is thrown around a lot, I think, but there were a lot of young people there from families where they may not have been given a lot of instruction, or you know maybe their dad wasn't there or something like that, and so there were a lot of times where I would realize that there were a good number of people just listening to whatever story myself or some of the older guys. It certainly wasn't just me, right? When we were talking, oh, I'm good, thank you. That we were just talking about something, about kids or about school or about whatever, because a lot of these experiences these guys had never had, right? They hadn't had college, they hadn't been married, they'd never had kids, they've never had a job, right? And so a lot of those was sharing that and keeping them focused was very enjoyable. I was also platoon guide for almost the entirety of the cycle, all 3 of the field training exercises, most of the non-field training times, and that was really great too. Me and another officer candidate where I was PG, he was APG, assistant platoon guide, and just being able to organize and actually do something intellectual. If I wasn't platoon guide, I think it would have been a lot worse. Not having something to at least something to occupy your mind, even if it was just like, do we have everybody? Yeah, count them again. 43. Okay, good. Just something to keep your mind occupied, because there was some really boring times because it's geared towards the bottom trainee.
Yeah, it is. And that's the rough part. Like I remember it's kind of one of those things where you listen to people talk and you have all these people, like when I went to RTI, you have all these, Oklahoma guardsmen who talk about their basic training experiences. And when you listen to them talk, you're like, it doesn't sound so bad. Or, it's like they're trying to, but you just don't have any comprehension or idea of what it is until you've actually been there and done it. Like, there's just no way. Like, you don't understand. You're going to be standing around for hours. And like, even Chad came back and goes, you're going to be standing in formation for hours, just waiting on someone to tell you to do something. And it's like, you'll never.
I told you, I kept telling you said, however much standing you think you're going to be doing, quadruple it.
There was less than I thought, but I think that was actually due to my memories from college with Marine Corps OCS, because we're talking, we did in a basic training, and what we've done so far in OCS is nothing what they made me do in 2007 with Marine Corps OCS. We would stand on the blacktop. I think one of our inspections, we stood on the blacktop at parade rest for 3.5 hours on the blacktop in Virginia in July.
Good God.
3.5 hours. We had guys literally fall over, faint, because it was inspection time, and they would go one by one by one. But I think honestly, probably the best thing that happened in basic training was one time some of the guys in my platoon got upset at my leadership style, that I would maybe not take their desires into as much consideration as I could have. And it made me realize that it was true, because I was seeing them as 17, 18, 19-year-old guys, and I did not think that they were worthy of being considered. And I realized that. I was like, oh, that's right. I am doing that.
You're a dictator.
And they were like, you're not the boss officially, right? We're all peers. And I was like, you know what? That's a good point. That's a really good point. And things got a little heated between people who agreed with them and people who disagreed with them. And I was trying to, we all know all 3 of us are fans of Jocko Willink. I was trying to step back and look at the situation. And I did, while people were yelling at each other. And I thought, you know what? No, they've got a point. And what happened after that time frame was that the squad leaders who were assigned and the team leaders who were assigned, they went from being oppositional and like downright insubordinate to, hey, now we're all getting along with each other. We actually like each other. We like each other better. Maybe not super like each other, but like each other better. And that was a great lesson to learn. And I think it's a lesson that will serve me because being an older candidate, I'll be a 37-year-old second lieutenant, right?
Junior officer.
Right. You know, I'm going to be going into a platoon that's going to have a bunch of 17, 18, 19-year-olds. Maybe not as many as I would think, but there's definitely going to be some in there.
Sure.
And if I do treat them like children, I will have negative consequences. And so I need to realize that they are grown men or women. And if they're going to be, if I have a female in my unit that I get assigned to, and if I don't take their wishes into consideration, if I it's not as I don't want to say what I'm hesitating to say is that it's not like the unit isn't run like a egalitarian democracy, right? The platoon leader is still going to be in charge, right? But at the same time, they are humans. They have wishes. They have desires, and we are a free people. And the Army is made up of volunteers. And so if you act like a dictator and you don't take your troops' thoughts into consideration, it's not going to end well for you.
No.
So that was probably the best lesson, probably the best thing that happened to me in all of basic training.
Good deal. That's awesome. So, good lesson learned there. It's definitely, like I said, keeping those morale up with those kids. It's difficult. Like I said, that's what I told you. Like my role was like you kind of had a good bonded group with your guys. Like I was sitting there like, wait, it's amazing how we had such very different experiences in basic training. Like I didn't bond with I don't feel like I had like a really good core group of friends there at basic training. I just felt like I had kids I was mentoring with. Like I said, don't get me wrong, I ended up really liking a whole lot of them. I still talk with some of them, but like I said, it just felt more like a mentorship than like a reciprocal kind of friendship thing, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a little rough because I was just like, there wasn't a whole lot of people that I felt like I could turn to, and I didn't really turn and lean on anybody very often anyway. I just remember I had some guys like, hey, you want to do laundry together, and like I had a guy who I'd do laundry with. So it was an odd experience, but I still enjoyed it. It was still I learned a lot, and you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about just the dynamics of very, very different personality types and groups of people. Like I think going to basic training definitely would make everyone a better officer in the long run because you get to see what it's like from the grunt size, from the ground. And I'm sure you might have a different perspective. Go ahead.
I know people say that, but like basic training's not. That's not the same as being in an operational unit.
Yeah.
Like I've never been in an operational unit, but I've certainly talked to enough people and read enough that like if you try and say like basic training is what the Army is really like that's what it's like to be a private or a specialist in a field artillery brigade. It's like no. I mean there's some hazing, there's some messing with them and everything like that, but that's not the Army. So a lot of people have that argument, right? But the Marines, the Navy, and the Air Force, and the Coast Guard, they don't send their officer candidates to basic training. We're the only ones that do that. So I am not convinced that it is necessarily the best course of action.
Okay.
But if we didn't do it, we'd have to severely modify OCS, right?
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't be getting those basic skills that we get at basic training.
Yeah.
Or we'd have to extend BOLIC. Things would have to change pretty significantly if we didn't send our OCS candidates to basic training because, sure, you're not memorized, but hey, you do a tourniquet for the first time. You learn how to do the 3 C's, or the 4 C's, combat casualty care, 3 C's. I'm forgetting some of the things already, but you get those initial exposures, right? But the other 4 branches don't do it. Yeah. They don't send their officer candidates to basic training.
I agree. Well,